North Korea says it has successfully launched a new military reconnaissance satellite, a claim that immediately set off alarms across Northeast Asia and prompted renewed scrutiny from the United States, South Korea, and Japan, all of whom are closely tracking Pyongyang's growing missile and space capabilities. According to North Korean state media, the satellite was placed into orbit using a long-range rocket launched from the country's northwest coast, with officials in Pyongyang describing the mission as a critical step in strengthening national defense and enhancing real-time surveillance of hostile forces. While independent confirmation of the satellite's operational status remains limited, regional militaries did detect launch activity and track the rocket's flight path, lending partial credibility to the claim that an object reached orbit. This development comes after a series of previous attempts by North Korea to deploy spy satellites, some of which failed mid-flight, exploded shortly after liftoff, or resulted in payloads that were never proven to be functional. The latest launch, if successful, would mark a meaningful technological milestone for Kim Jong Un's regime, which has repeatedly emphasized space-based reconnaissance as a force multiplier for its missile and nuclear programs. Spy satellites are not merely symbolic achievements, they can significantly improve a country's ability to monitor troop movements, track naval assets, and plan missile launches with greater precision. For North Korea, which has long complained about U.S. and South Korean surveillance flights and satellites monitoring its territory, deploying its own reconnaissance satellite would be framed domestically as leveling the playing field. However, the international community views such launches through a very different lens, because the rocket technology used to place satellites into orbit is closely related to that used for intercontinental ballistic missiles. As a result, North Korea's space launches are widely seen as indirect tests of long-range missile capabilities, which are explicitly banned under multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions. South Korea's military confirmed that it detected the launch and is analyzing whether the satellite is transmitting signals, a key indicator of whether it is actually functioning as intended. Japanese authorities also issued warnings to ships and aircraft ahead of the launch window and later stated that an object appeared to have passed over parts of the country's airspace before continuing into the Pacific, underscoring the regional impact of North Korea's space ambitions. The United States, meanwhile, condemned the launch as a brazen violation of international law, reiterating that any use of ballistic missile technology by Pyongyang is prohibited regardless of whether it is labeled as a space launch. Analysts note that North Korea has been steadily improving its launch vehicles, benefiting from years of iterative testing and, potentially, from technological assistance or shared know-how, though concrete evidence of external support remains a matter of debate. The regime has openly acknowledged setbacks in its satellite program in the past, with Kim Jong Un himself criticizing engineers for failed launches and ordering rapid fixes, an unusually candid admission that highlighted how seriously the leadership takes the program. This time, state media released photos and statements portraying Kim personally overseeing the launch preparations and celebrating the outcome, a common propaganda tactic designed to project strength and scientific competence to both domestic and foreign audiences. Still, skepticism remains high among experts, many of whom point out that placing a satellite into orbit does not automatically mean it can deliver usable intelligence. Building a reliable reconnaissance satellite requires advanced optics, stable power systems, secure data links, and precise orbital control, all of which are technologically demanding. Even if the satellite is operational, its resolution and revisit rates may be limited compared to those of more advanced space powers, reducing its immediate military value. Nevertheless, incremental progress matters, and even basic imagery could help North Korea better understand regional military patterns and infrastructure. The launch also has diplomatic implications, coming at a time when negotiations over North Korea's nuclear program are effectively stalled and regional tensions are elevated by ongoing missile tests and large-scale military exercises involving the U.S. and its allies. For South Korea, the event reinforces the urgency of strengthening its own surveillance and missile defense capabilities, including its independent satellite programs designed to reduce reliance on U.S. intelligence. Japan, too, has been expanding its space and defense posture, citing North Korea as a primary threat in its recent national security strategies. At the United Nations, the launch is likely to trigger calls for emergency meetings and renewed debates over enforcement of sanctions, though past experience suggests that diplomatic responses may be constrained by geopolitical divisions among major powers. China and Russia have historically been more cautious about imposing additional penalties on Pyongyang, arguing for dialogue and stability over pressure, while the US and its allies push for stricter enforcement. For Kim Jong Un, the claimed satellite launch serves multiple purposes. It bolsters domestic legitimacy by showcasing technological achievement, sends a message of defiance to adversaries, and advances practical military capabilities that could complicate deterrence calculations in the region. Whether the satellite ultimately proves to be fully functional or not, the attempt itself underscores a broader trend. North Korea is steadily pushing the boundaries of its weapons and space programs despite international opposition. As analysts continue to monitor orbital data and signal transmissions in the coming days and weeks, the world will gain a clearer picture of what Pyongyang has actually achieved. Until then, the launch stands as another reminder that the line between civilian space activity and military missile development is especially thin in the case of North Korea, and that each step forward, real or claimed, carries significant security and diplomatic consequences for the region and beyond.